Good evening. This is Craig, and it is the second Tuesday or Thursday of the month for time for Art Walking Radio here in KXFM Laguna Beach. And this evening we have a special, welcome to a very special edition of Art Walking Radio. How best to listen to us? You can go to kxfmradio.org and you can listen to us live. Or if you miss part of the show and you tune in late, then you can always go to artwalking.art, and that's artwalking.art, not .com, not .org, but .art. It's a new tag. And there you will find post the program that we have this evening for you, the podcast of today's program. So what we have a fabulous sponsor. I should say that right away. It's our Beautification Council of Laguna Beach. It's not a committee, it's a council, and it does everything in Laguna Beach to make us beautiful. We wish to thank them for our longtime sponsor of this program as we go into, how many years now, Leah?
Oh, well, it's been several years that they've been very kind and very generous.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we had Coastal Eddy Gallery, which moved out of town, but the Beautification Council has been very generous to continue to support us. And as we always tell people, artwalking.art, the tagline is nature, nurturing culture. Yes. And without nature, we won't have any culture.
Yeah. There's another way you can join us on the program this evening, and that is if you go to artwalking.art, there is a link for our for Zoom. And you can zoom in and join us live in the Zoom room, or you can just click the link to listen to us live. Whatever rouses your berries.
And you can also call in.
Yeah, you can call in, and that call in is 949-715-5936. 715-5936. That is actually our request line here at the radio station. But when it calls in, the lights up the studio, and we know someone's ringing in, and we can. You can join in the conversation. We have, as usual, quite a conversation in the pipelines this evening. But let's feed that thought with what happens when creativity becomes your only compass. That's the question this evening. Tonight, we'll speak with Austrian, Californian, self-taught, multidisciplinary artist, speaker, and author, Michael Magruch. Oh. Spelled Michael is spelled with two L's, just so you know, who has turned a life outside of the system into a powerful message for humanity. Michael shares how his dyslexia and dysgraphia led him to embrace common sense art and human connections. His story will inspire others by sharing his message. Each of us is one of one, a unique expression in a shared human family. His insights may challenge you and how you see the world and perhaps yourself. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our creative director, Leah Vasquez, to introduce Michael.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to the program. This evening's very unique, as we always have unique people on, but it's unique because there are people who we call hidden figures in our society. We see them, but we don't see them. We are so busy with our lives today. We're moving so fast. Sometimes we forget all the things that made us who we are. But Michael will be here to help us remember what that is. And we have, I'm very grateful to have met Michael. Let me give you a little background. I work out at the Susie Q, which is our local community center. It's a shared center between both the recreation department and a place where people that are seniors can go, people who want to know more and keep their connections and their aging. And there are all kinds of classes. So we've had people from the Susie Q talk about the amazing things that the Susie Q offers, a sense of community, which is like nothing else. And people even come from out of town to go there. The services are phenomenal. The classes are great. There's everything you can possibly imagine to do. And I met Michael there and we started talking. And the more time I spent talking to him and others, the more I realized that he was had something very special to offer. And so, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. And we can look forward to sharing it with our audience this evening. And let's begin by introducing you to our audience.
I'd like to say something about Michael a little bit too from my experience.
Absolutely.
As an introduction.
Jump in anytime. This is a ad hoc program.
When I first met Michael, I went to a meeting at the Susie Q, incidentally, and it was about art, the Art Commission, and what was going on in Laguna Beach, and it was an opportunity for people to share their heartfelt feelings. And of everyone in the room who spoke, there was only one person I felt who spoke truly from the heart, without any obstructions, without any encumbrances. His feelings, his heartfelt feelings, and that was Michael. And it didn't set well with everyone, I have to say, but it was unbridled, honest words that came forth. And so I did get him on a Rainbow Radio program once, and we explored some more. But that, in a sense, is Michael. He's an artist for art's sake and for himself, and no one else gets in the way of that. And that's to say that.
Well, that's very well put.
Thank you.
And Michael, so welcome, and we're so happy and pleased that you're here with us this evening. And we have a 2-hour program, and if we only use 1 hour, fine. But I think we'll just take it easy, and if anybody wants to call and ask questions. So let's start off, Michael. Tell us about your upbringing and where you lived in your family, where you were born, and about your family and life in Austria.
I was born in Austria, in Vienna, and I was a sick child. I was, have allergies and was reacting weird to every turn of the seasons. And I had about 140 doctors working on me to fix me, east, west, everything. Yeah, and I've never felt better than now. I'm 66 now, and I've never felt better now. But that was my first challenge, and I went to school at 7. And when I came to school, I understood it, but I couldn't regurgitate. And then they said, 50 years ago, so they said, "Oh, you are dyslexic." That was I went to the doctor. They checked me and said, "Okay, you're dyslexic, but you still have to read as everybody else. You have to speak as and I was stuttering. I couldn't speak at all. And it was hard. And the only thing that actually got me to know myself was to create. And I bought an old postal motorcycle and, a 50, and fixed that motorcycle up. And then I built a hut in the forest and everything. And I loved the creation. because I saw what I can do, not somebody telling me, like you would say, Greg, Michael, you're good or whatever. Let me tell you something. I saw it myself. That's the beauty of art, the creation part. And till today, I'm very much into creation of art, not into the product.
But tell us about because you jumped all of a sudden you've jumped into being almost an adult. Let's go back to your mother and father and your family. What they did and how you were raised. Were there expectations like in many families?
No, because they thought he's sick and he cannot come. So what I was so lucky that they were saying, hey, deal with. My father didn't even want to go when the class called him. He didn't even want to go to the meeting. See, that was 50 years ago, Leah. It wasn't like that wasn't today. And they left me alone, which was the greatest because I could create, But school was horrible. I only have 6 years of school. I couldn't comprehend with my neurodiversity. I couldn't comprehend what to do.
That's what Einstein said about education. Education's not for everyone.
Yeah, they thought he was. They thought he was really mentally challenged because he didn't speak till 8 years old.
Right, but that shows you. In the past, we've had people who were on the spectrum on here. We know that there's a huge arc, and that people compensate for what they don't have. They create around themselves a way that they can function. So you've created a way that you can function through your life. So we were born in Austria. How did you come to be in the United States?
So I was always in school, always thinking I want to go and figure out America because that was the big thing, and I wanted to figure it out. And it wasn't like I saw Bewitched or something and said, "Oh, I want to live that life of Bewitched," because that's not America. But I said I want to see it myself. So then I came here to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I hated Los Angeles. I hated it. And then I said, no, this is not enough. A month or two, I need to see more. I need to actually work here.
Well, you say you drove?
No, we drove with my friend. We were two friends.
Did you come to United States by boat?
No, I flew here.
You flew here.
Yeah, and to just check out America, to check it out.
You were on the East Coast.
Yeah, I came to, flew into New York, and then went all the way, Route 66 and all these things, like what everybody else does to check out. And I felt it wasn't enough.
How did you know about all that? How did you know about Route 66? How did you know?
There was a movie.
In a movie, probably. In a movie.
In a movie. Yeah. Well, because I'm thinking, at what age did you come to America?
18.
You were 18 years old.
18 first. I was 18.
Did you come with a friend or by?
Yeah, friend.
Oh, you came with a friend. Uh-huh. So the two of you had this road trip adventure.
Yeah.
And you learned to drive?
No, I knew how to drive. I had a driver's license.
You had a driver's license. Yeah. So it's very interesting. Supposedly you're dyslexic. Yeah. Supposedly you you can't do certain things, and yet you were able to pass a test
and go to America, fly to America, and do this with. I didn't even speak. My English. I didn't learn anything. I was only 6 years.
You were still speaking
German with my German friend, and then I said, "Can I have a salt? Can I have sugar?" That's all I knew. A hamburger, because that's what the English.
My dad said during the war, the only thing he learned in German was how to say, "Come walk with me in the moonlight."
Exactly. Yeah.
But it got him through the war.
Yeah. So we went 2 or 3 months, and I saw Grand Canyon and all this stuff, and then I was like. It's not enough. There was something missing. I wanted to work here. I wanted to see. So I got friends, asked them, where can I get a job at that time? And 50 years ago was different than now.
Mhm.
And they said, oh, we have a job in Boston, we have it in Philadelphia, or we have it in Laguna Beach.
Is that how you came here?
Yeah.
For a job?
Yeah. I wanted to see more than just visiting.
And what kind of a job did you come to?
I was a houseboy, a butler.
A butler. As a houseboy?
Yeah, a houseboy butler / butler.
And it was for a private person?
Yeah.
How interesting. And so had you ever done that before?
No. What do you expect from a neurodiverse person? No, I do it.
You learned on the job.
On the job, exactly. And actually, I came here, there was nobody home. They were on vacation. So when I came home,
you
they
had
said,
the house to yourself. Of course.
No, yeah, but I didn't know anybody. I haven't talked to him. I couldn't just take over the house. So they showed me a bed in the basement that was on 3 legs. And
3 legs.
Yeah, 3 legs. And all spider webs and everything. And I had to all clean this up.
The basement was your home.
Yeah.
In this. And and did you speak English?
No. I spoke a little, like, can I have salt? Can I have sugar?
That was it.
I need jeans. I need 501 Levi.
you knew those things.
Yeah. The whole world knows those things.
That's absolutely true. So here you are in Laguna, and how did you come to understand any of your limitations?
I didn't.
And your abilities.
I never had. My limitations was just, it was given. I had limitations.
And you say you made friends though, because.
Yeah.
And they helped you?
Yeah. For example, Peter Blake, everyone said, don't go to Peter Blake. He's so harsh. Don't go to him. And he was still up in next to Greenwood. And he said, and I went to him and I said, how can I be an artist to represent it? And then you still had to have folder with slides and all this stuff. He got me through all this stuff. He said, no, take this, and do this. And he helped me.
That's a wonderful thing. He's
still one of my best friends.
It's always interesting to hear because, people's reputations sometimes supersede themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Peter Blake was very difficult. And he did a lot of things that were questionable. And yet, here's this wonderful story. So it makes you stop and think about judgment and how we judge others. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. Yeah. Not only you, but anybody. Uh-huh. And we're all guilty of it. We make these judgments. Yeah. Why we do it? It's the nature of human being. It's very basic to tribalism and we think about human beings, but you go way back into Darwin and you look about the survival of animals and what they do, and you watch tribes of monkeys and they do the same thing. They have their allegiances and their groups.
The difference in nature, though, is the leader of the pack is usually the most powerful and intelligent. And with human beings,
well, the most powerful, perhaps not always the most intelligent.
Well, but in human beings, we don't have that. to say a political commentary on what's going on in the United States right now, but let's not digress.
Well, no, that's all right, because I think that's very interesting. Because we do have these things that happen, and looking at them straight on, as what Michael was saying, is that it's what creates creativity. As bad as things get, the creativity just keeps on stockpiling because it's the way that we solve problems through our creative self.
I want to say something real quickly that just before it eludes me with it. Michael, you too often creativity gets impugned and held back, I think, by parents or friends that think, and they stifle people. Apparently, your parents, they didn't stifle you, but they didn't
do anything for me.
But at least they didn't stifle you. And I have to say, and then for me, I have to say, when I was in high school and took the SATs, this is going way back, and I did English, and like you just said, which is a revelation to me, I could take it in, but I couldn't answer it on paper.
Exactly, or repeat it, or regurgitate.
I couldn't regurgitate. And when it was a timed event, and everyone would put their pencil down after the first 5 minutes, and I would be halfway through or a third through and struggle. So my percentiles were in the mentally deficient category.
Yeah.
However, I took another part of the SAT was logic, and it had drawings and it had questions that no one understood, and I was in the 99 percentile.
Perfect.
But the counselor told my mother, well, that must have been a mistake because he was failed so much in his English. How could he succeed in logic?
It's interesting that a conclusion that was given.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we had to somehow support the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
System relevance.
And so I didn't realize I am dyslexic. And I remember years later, after I was cleaning up the bedroom, I found an old coloring book I had, and I'd written my name backwards. And at the time, it seemed, I was remember very carefully making it every letter, and I realized it was backwards. I can write backwards real easily.
Awesome.
Cursive, really nice.
Yeah.
But forward. So these things I didn't learn later in life, but I don't think I had some very caring parents, and they supported me on about everything, and I had a good social situation that really helped. But I did not realize those challenges I was facing until many, many years later. And it's
now, I'm talking very loosely about this now too, but I was in a crisis all the time. And you said, I couldn't select. I have no choice. I had to go to Peter or to other people. That I had no choice. I had no 10 people saying, "Oh, we want to work with you, Michael. We want to work with you. We want to help you." No, I had to go and say, "Hey, take what I get."
You had to initiate the action. And that's really interesting because so many people will pass people by. And I think this is what I came to. You walk down the street and you do not know who you're passing.
Yeah.
And it's easy to assume anything. You see someone that's in rags and you assume something, and yet you stop and talk to them and you realize that they are not the person that you pegged a certain way. So we have to give everyone else their due, regardless of whether we quote like or don't like, or we view them a certain way. It tells us more about ourselves, Michael, than it does about the person.
Yeah.
And if we can start looking at that and finding out how we think, then there's hope. Always there's hope.
I should say this is KXFM 104.7, and we are here tonight with Art Walking Art, the second Thursday of every month. And our sponsor is Laguna Beautification Council.
Laguna Beach Beautification Council.
With Michael Magruch.
Magruch.
I got to get the U in there. Magruch.
Yeah.
And Leah Vesquez as the co-host here in Let's Go On.
Well, so we were talking about your influences. What other influences, Michael? What were the highlights of your influences throughout
artistically?
Up to this point?
Artistically, or
well, in any way that, because all of it ends up being as kind of a cauldron.
Culture, yeah.
Yes.
So I told you with the motorcycle. So I was into motorcycles and girls.
And girls.
That's the only thing that I could think from 15 or 16.
That's normal. Yeah. That's very normal.
No, I'm just saying that was my only. There was nothing else but motorcycles and girls.
And did you meet the girls?
I met a lot of girls.
Yeah. And did you ever settle in with one?
I settled in with one. Yeah, I married, and then she got bilateral breast cancer, and now I don't know where she is.
You mean she disappeared?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, I don't know where she is.
Right. Was this here in this country?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Well,
was she creative too?
Yeah, very.
Very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Isn't that something, how people come in and out of your life?
Yeah. And
you're still searching?
No. I'm not searching for anybody. I say when it happens, it happens.
Right.
I'm not trying to, do what the system says. And you said we should explain the system relevance. System relevance. I For 5 years now, I'm talking about system relevance and human centricity. System relevance is you're a doctor, you work in a CEO in a company, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, whatever, and you're the mayor of a thing, so you are relevant in the system. That has nothing to do with your human centricity because you are one of one human. And just look at your family. Everybody's different. Everybody likes different, and that's why you can't judge. You can't. It's impossible to judge because everybody is a one of one human, which with the only DNA fingerprints that you pointed out last, eyes, tongue. Everybody has different ears. We are all one of ones.
That's right. Michael's referring to something that I always like to remind people, or if they don't know it, that your fingerprint and your tongue is unique to you. And nobody has the same
and
tongue
DNA
and taste like your DNA. It's very different. So when you say that you love the way something tastes, go and taste that. And then you say, oh, I don't like that. That's because you are so unique. Each of us is so unique that and even as we change through age, our tastes change, literally. Literally, our taste buds change. And especially, when we have like COVID, that really made a difference. People lost their sense of taste sometimes.
And smell.
And even hearing. And it came back in different ways. So, I mean, I had that experience myself because of COVID, that I lost my sense of taste. And I was always very acutely aware of odor and taste and everything. And it was so bizarre to not have that. That came back eventually, but in different ways. And I think that's it. So the creativity, even that is affected by the circumstances of your environment. Again, what we have experienced in our life has a mark on us. Everything. There was a famous philosopher, writer, psychologist in early education who said, you're like everybody that's born is like a clean piece of paper, and everything that touches it leaves a mark.
Well, at the end of every day, you're different for having experienced that day.
Exactly.
Right. And it's true. So it's wonderful to be sitting here with both of you and all of us together, we look back on how we were raised. We look back on our influences. We look back, and even today, even yesterday, we look back to yesterday, and today's very different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the fact that we got here today, Michael, when I went to pick you up,
and
we were told that there was going to be an enormous amount of traffic in Laguna Beach, and that, because of the graduation ceremonies and all that's going on. So I go downtown. There's no traffic. It's as quiet as you could possibly imagine.
We saw parking spots, right? We saw parking spots everywhere.
Everywhere there was a parking spot. And I'm thinking, what planet am I on? Yeah. I'm getting this message so I planned on being here, a little bit later than we arrived because I was going to give myself plenty of time anticipating. So it was all for naught. In other words, I ended up calling Michael, and Michael said, oh, I'm standing by the water district. That's great. I was underground at the Susie Q waiting for him. So, and there was no traffic coming down. So I just rolled over a block later and picked him up. And then we just took our time coming over. And even on the streets right now, it's very quiet. So we never really know what we hear and what we experience is the same, but you have to be willing to step out and step in and allow yourself, always to be wrong, because that's how we learn. It's only through our mistakes, like a child walking and falling, getting up, no matter if they're crying or not, and continuing on. And so I find it wonderful to be able to meet someone like Michael that has gone through what some people think would be absolutely impossible. And yet we know from the great books that have been written, Helen Keller, and different people, how people who can't speak at all, even sometimes, can do great things.
Yeah.
I want to step back to a comment you said about you found that being creative, whatever it was, whether it was overhauling a motorcycle,
Yeah.
what was really rewarding for you on a
It's
personal
direct
level.
feedback. That's for everybody, every artist.
Well, yeah, and see, I think that for me, I went back to my dad loved his tools and he knew everything there was to know about automobiles and house construction, all those things. And I was just like a sponge with him. And I found I could overhaul a lawnmower engine and I learned how to clean the valves. I learned how it functioned. My dad was there for me and helped me with it. So I think, or whether it's your car collector and you love restoring cars, it's kind of that. And so later in years, when I had the corporate job and I was flying all over and doing crap for hotels, and I would come home and find so much satisfaction in working on doing a brake job on my old Cadillac or whatever I had at the moment was very rewarding. And I think art. So what I want to know is more about your transition from that motorcycle to art and how you find your art rewarding today.
So the girls and the thing, and then the girls and the girls and the motorcycles, and then I started creating stuff. Like I told you, I built a tree house and stuff. And I said, "Oh my God,
I built a tree house too."
Yeah. So and it's very rewarding because it's now nobody says, "Okay, Greg, you did a great tree house." You see what you did.
Yep.
You don't need anybody else to. They can say it's the worst tree house. You see it, and this is when the people say, "Oh, that's horrible art." Michael, you're never gonna be an artist. They said that.
Yeah.
I did 3,000 painting. I wrote 8 books. I published 5. It's. I don't care what people say because it's in the creation that I get direct feedback. Okay, like when you cook, right? You can taste it and say, "Hey, I don't care if nobody likes it. I like it. I created it," and that gives you direct self-esteem and self-confidence.
Of course, it's always nice when somebody likes to
taste or buys your food. Paintings,
or well, not buy the painting so much, but the fact that they appreciate it.
Yeah.
And the fact that they like what you've cooked. It's not going to be everybody because everyone's different. But yes, it is nice to get feedback.
Too often, I think people are terrified to be expressive when it comes to art because they're fearful what the reception might be. And once I realized that it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I would joke like someone say, "Where did that art come from?" And I said, "Oh, it's on loan from the Getty. We have to return it."
Beautiful.
You can make it up.
I could make it up.
That is.
But I have to remember when my first piece of art I was going to do for a commercial space for a resort in Hawaii. And I said I was going to do it, and I went on and on and on. I didn't do it. And one evening, after a couple glasses of wine, I decided, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And by the end of the process, I was laughing. My heart was racing. I was perspiring. It was cathartic. And I felt like looking back, I thought, I wonder how many other people could have that experience for the better.
It's like free speech. It's like art is the free creativity. It has no limitation. Art never asks you how it should look. The creativity, it's like your freedom of speech, freedom of expression is creativity, is art. Art is the highest form of creativity. The freedom of expression that is not in any way inboxed or system relevant. It's not, but the system wants to make it. It should look like Mona Lisa, but it doesn't.
Well, I think this is what's so interesting when you go to art school or you go to any school for almost anything.
Yeah.
It is what Michael's saying. It has to be system relevant in order for them to even understand it. And you're given very few choices. For instance, I was in the art department in the university, and I watched how they taught and the things they said you could do if you were an artist.
And you can't do.
And well, the things that you were open to you were you could be a preparator in a museum.
Yeah.
You could become if you were lucky, you would be involved in a gallery if you found a gallery that had that kind of work that that you did and that would sell. Or you could teach if you got another degree. You could do certain things, but that was a slot. And it didn't stop with art. It is as relevant in the fields of all the fields, whether it's law, medicine, or anything else, that these, as Michael says, system relevance. So they're based on a system rather than an open mindedness. And more, as we begin to understand other cultures, we also see that there are other ways of doing things. And there are many who have embraced that outside view. And it's such a refreshing and freeing thing to happen because then you don't make anyone wrong.
And also it enriches you.
It enriches
you and it makes you grow.
It gives you alternatives, especially when you look around and people have serious problems and you watch the ads for all the medicines. Well, years ago, my brother and I, because we were rascals, he was very good at sight reading and playing the piano. So he would choose Rachmaninoff or some nice dark music. And I would read the contraindications of the medicine at the same time. And we would laugh so hard because it was so true, because the contraindications will kill you.
Yeah.
The medicine might help you, but then on again, it's like what you don't read is what the problem is. And so here we are talking about art, but it's no different, because if you're learning to use certain equipment and you're put into a slot and that's what you do, because no one said that you could do art in a different way. You have to wait for someone to really make that happen in order to have it any kind of idea that it could be done. And it could even be sold. So,
Yeah. Now the system relevance is about the product. It's like making artists a manufacturer of a product that sells, and the system doesn't take responsibility. They say, okay, Leah, do that and then sell it. And if you're lucky, you might it. I mean, I've sold a painting for $11,000. This was a long time ago. That was my highest painting that I sold. But it's not the selling. In the art is the creation.
It is the creation. It's in the process. I remember having epiphanies in my studio. The sense, and the minute you think about it, it's gone. But the feeling was, because I'm not religious in a formal sense, it was this sense that you were completely free. And it was so fleeting and so fast. But you felt that if there's something like what you want to call a God, this the other that you don't, the unknown. And there you are by yourself doing something. And it's so magnificent until you actually turn and look at it, and then it's gone. The minute you look at it and try to figure out that,
is it good? Is it going to sell?
Yes. Or not even that. Even just the fact that you've recognized it. It's in the doing. It's almost like you're in a certain aura. And the process itself is the most beautiful thing. And I think that's what people get when they look to a higher thing, to something outside of themselves, uncontrollable.
That's why you have the most artists ever. There were never more artists in the world than now. And there was never less money paid for art than now. So it's like, and not because not because they're more, but because right now you can't clean money anymore with art. In the old days, you had a big company. Your wife said, I want to do some business. Okay, open a gallery. I pay for it. And he wrote it off. That's not anymore. That doesn't work anymore.
Well, when you look at the festivals here in town, it's a lot more difficult now than it ever was to sell. Yeah. Because, and again, it makes us think, though. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, it sounds judgmental, but the beauty is, the fact is if you're not selling, where's the art? Right.
Do you think on some level, this is kind of an abstract thought that just kind of flashed in my brain, okay? Uh, we are visual, our visual component in our brain and our thought processes is never, ever in the history of man been more stimulated than it is now.
Social media, yeah.
Yeah, and it has such a and you have so much bandwidth for that, those imaging and that imaging, that interface with social media, that maybe there's less appreciation for art that has that message.
It's music too.
Yeah.
I remember when we grew up, there were like 100 bands and we knew them all. We all knew the 100 bands there were, Who, Rolling Stones, Beatles, whatever. And we knew this thing, and today is millions of bands. And I don't know.
Wonders. There's a bazillion one-hit wonders.
Yeah, and I was always a jazz fan. Now the people tell me about jazz artists that I've never even heard of.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 23 from Berlin, and he's the best bass player, they say, ever.
But the response should be to that bandwidth limitations is to create art that is just so outrageous that it demands that attention.
But the system doesn't allow that.
I know. See, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. The box doesn't. So, I mean, because right now there's so many different ways to create art. And Leah and I have had this conversation many times about performance art. What it can be is when it's not a performance, it's performance art, which is moving and sounds and smells and lighting and ballet, dance, whatever.
Choreographed.
Yeah. And maybe it only lasts 10 minutes, but it's performance art. And it's combining things that never could have been combined before.
It's experiential.
Yeah. And it's new and it's fresh. And I just feel like that is a whole art form outside the framed art idea that Leah so rightly points out, that is the perception. It's so outside that frame that it deserves some attention.
And it's interesting because we're both sitting here, and I know our listeners too. When you say you're an artist, the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth is, what kind of art do you do?
Yeah.
And again, it's to pigeonhole a certain type.
Every time every system relevant. And what is art?
Right.
I mean, and Leah, we know artists that work like museum art. We look at the artists you can sell in every museum. So even museums are boxed.
But museums,
that's interesting too.
Well, to some degree, that's true. However, it depends. The ones who collect art historically, which tells of the time in which it's done, because it's usually a reflection of the time in which it's done. But then, as we've moved on, if you, for instance, go to our local museum here and elsewhere, there are experiences that are different. And it takes you back a bit, and it's really good. I'm very pleased that Julie Perlin, who's taking over the museum direction, is so open and so thoughtful about the exhibits that are in there, that you can walk in there and have multiple experiences. You can go back to locals. You can go back through history, exactly what you're talking about, Michael. Yeah. And I just took a friend yesterday, just for a few minutes, to see some of the 4 different galleries in the museum, each one so very different. And so it's not boxing things so tightly now. It's more, I think there's that wonderful opportunity, in spite of all the things that get boxed for commercialization and everything that's sold and to make money. There is the opposite happening.
I think there is one thing that I talked to Julie about this, and I interviewed her with Johanna, and they all said we need to bring back the arts into Laguna. And I said, focus on the creation, don't focus on the product. And for a museum director, it is all about the product, and that's just the hard thing. She could create, for example, if let's say you are a famous artist, and it's just, Leah, would you teach an art class? Or would you just guide the people to express themselves freely, right? Right, with creativity, and you have your paintings outside in the museum shown. So
They are
come
doing that. They are doing that.
that doing that
Yes.
because when you they like your art, and then you teach them or you guide them to express themselves.
Right. You don't want to train. You
Yeah,
want to open
Yeah,
the door
yeah.
and let them look in.
I did a class. It's called Self-Aware Art in 2025, and I have about 100 graduates, and all the artists, a lot of Laguna artists. So when I go to Sawdust or the art fair, I see all my students, and it was just about the voice. It was just, what is your voice?
That's exactly true. So tell us, when you say you taught art to people, where are the students, and how do you, if somebody wanted to take a class from you?
I don't do classes right now. I had a grant for this class, and I did it in at the Robert Holton's Drizzle Studios, where Hugo Rivera is on top. And I had my class there, and Muffin, Spencer McDavid. There's so many kids now from. I can go with you through the.
Now, who did you say you did it? Where did
with
you?
Muffin Spencer Devlin.
All right, and this was where?
You know Muffin, right? She was the first gay golfer on Sports Illustrated.
Oh, I'm not familiar with it, but that's irrelevant.
That was one. Then I have them all. I'm so bad in names, but I have them all. It was about
no. I'm just wondering
graduates.
Where you did it.
Oh, at the Drizzle Studio. I told you. Oh, above Hugo Rivera Gallery.
Yes. Oh, Hugo Rivera Gallery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see. And so you taught some classes there?
I taught. Yeah, I had about 100 graduates from Huntington Beach to everywhere.
And how long did that go on?
Almost a year.
Wow.
Because I had him come back, and there was no judgment or anything. We're just saying, look at what we saw in your piece of art. We looked at that, and then we spoke and said, I feel Leah is doing this and that. And then you come and says, no, I didn't mean it like that. I mean it's something else. So we've helped you find out with questions what voice you have, how to find your voice. And I have a questionnaire of about 58 questions to help you find your voice, because in 3 seconds Sinatra, right? I mean, you push Sinatra down and that's Frank Sinatra. That guy had a voice, a uniqueness.
Yes.
That's interesting.
I've spoken before about this with my own work, because as you move on in life, just like anything else, it changes. And the beauty of not being trapped in a style or in a box, being boxed, is that you give yourself permission to move on, and there's a freedom and a beauty to it. And I think about all the new things that are possible, because there isn't anything that an artist cannot use. Their imagination just has no bars on it. There's no keys, and you don't have to worry about that. The people who are studying, they're so eager to pass exams and to learn how to use materials, which is all very good.
They have a block. They have a creative block, right. And I've never had a flow.
But being exposed is a different thing.
Yeah.
Being exposed to different types of materials, whether you're using spider webs, or in the case of many of the artists who do things, found art, there's some fantastic things that can be done without spending any money or ever entering an art store.
We will be back in just a moment. I think we want to come back and discuss these boxes a little bit more, and the constraints they bring, and when we should maybe open a box, and maybe when we should let the box pass into history. So we'll be right back. This is KXFM 104.7.
Good.
Good.
where shall we go from here? That's a good way to start.
That's a good, because when you bog, oh,
L'amour est un oiseau rebelle que nul ne peut apprivoiser. Et c'est bien en vain qu'on l'appelle, s'il lui convient de refuser. Rien n'y fait, menace ou prière, ne parle bien notre santé. C'est l'autre que je préfère. Il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît. L'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Et si je t'aime, si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Et si je t'aime, si je t'aime, regarde.
KXRN LP, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Beach. KXFM on 104.7, kxfmradio.org.
Sunday nights at 10 p.m., the show is Moody. I'm your host, Dr. Marginus, licensed clinical psychologist. Join me as we talk psychology, a primer for therapy. So if you're thinking of going to therapy or you're in therapy, we are going to dive in, demystify it, and give it some context. Sunday nights, 10 p.m. on KXFM, Laguna's Community Radio. I'll see you then.
This disclaimer is a statement notifying listening audiences that any opinions expressed on our shows are not representative of Laguna Radio, Inc., its management, or its board of directors.
We're back.
This is the intro for Michael and his abstract art.
Everything's abstract.
Yeah.
Anytime you take it out of any context, it's abstraction.
and I couldn't do representational because I couldn't do a portrait of, I never could.
Even that is abstract.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the whole point. We put terms on it. Again, that's the way we box things in. We find a term, whether we call it dyslexia or abstract art.
Yeah.
And then you have to start redefining it because people say, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And then there you get stuck because it's your definition and you made a box around it.
Boxes, which is what the topic, a box can be an opinion.
But it's what's in the box that counts.
When you box humans, and we are 8 billion 1 of 1 humans, when you box them and they express themselves, they first learn how to game the system, then they compete, and then the last thing is they fight a war. That's what we have now, right now. We have so many boxings that the people use their creativity to survive in the box.
That's very interesting perspective. A whole new perspective for me on boxes, but yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Michael, what allows you to thrive? And also, if you can share some of the special qualities that you have found by living here in this town, and and to move even further, particularly in our community center, the Susie Q, how you feel that place offers something very special.
And we talked about this, right, Leah?
Right.
That we think that Nadia, who runs the show there, and all the ladies, it is most human centric. There's no judgment. And you can be honest. And we find that is the space that is the most human centric. In Laguna Beach, because in Laguna Beach, we don't talk. We fight in the thing. We don't really interact, and the only interaction that really happens between one-on-one humans is actually where I feel like, oh, that's that's like here, right? We're dancing with each other with three, and that's what you can do in the thing. You can dance anywhere. There is something is told you is they tell you, and you have to follow, or you can't do it, or they say no. But in the Susie Q, I'm very impressed.
We had Ricky Redman on.
Yeah,
who's wonderful, and herself is an artist. She offered to come and speak with us today. But I thought, thing is that the people there, it is a real sense of community. It is the closest thing that I have experienced in the 60 years that I've lived here in town. Let me see. Has it been 60 years? That's pretty bad. Close. I came in 1964, and it's a long time.
Yeah.
And it was quiet, and people were they weren't any different than they are today. Don't get me wrong. But there was less, there was more freedom because there was less of us.
Yeah.
And now that we've reached that 8.5 billion, it's interesting how fast, in spite of all the wars and everything else and the climate change, human beings, the footprint that we have is increasing, ever increasing. And it's very interesting to see how it's come to this point, because everything seems to be boiled down. Not everything, but many things, I should say. I shouldn't make it so broad. Boil down to how much things are worth and who decides that worth.
Exactly. The decision is the most dangerous, because that's the box. Because I could say, you are not worth anything. You are not worth anything because you are a woman. You are a guy. And these guys are Mexican. This is guy.
You hit it right on the nail. You have someone here that doesn't fit the box.
No.
Craig, you don't fit the box. You have Rainbow Radio. You have a different view of the world, and it's starting to get popularized and inclusive.
Being gay.
It's taken, being gay, and or there's so many permutations of that. You can't even put the word on it anymore. It's A, B, C, D, F, G, X, Y, Z, and then a couple letters that are upside down with a couple hashtag marks. Then you have Michael, and Michael's sitting here, and he doesn't have a box because he defies what the system. What do we do with someone like that? Where do you go? Where do you belong? Can we step over you, around you, under you? How do you fit into this box? And certainly as a woman, I've experienced it. People are always amazed that you even have a voice. Of course, it's more popular now. But even then, you look at all the ads, and what do women do? They have to have their faces lifted. They have to have their breasts enlarged. They have to have their lips pushed out. And you can't get old, because then you lose your purpose. So it's a fascinating thing how we humans create the box and then try to defy it. I mean,
well,
it's just fascinating.
It's too bad, because too often we subscribe to just what you said about. And I look at the culture right now, and there's a big trend. The culture has been the marketing culture and money. And what represents money represents success. And there's been some conversations about that, and that families too often teach their children success is financial success is being successful. Well, for a lot of people, it's not, and they miss the boat. But that the parent perhaps should say being successful is being yourself and being who you are and celebrating.
Maybe it's out of fear.
But, well, I don't know. I think we've been exposed to so much cultural influence with advertising and marketing that we subscribe to it. And I think there's a whole generation right now, I've said this before, that they've been told that the big SUV is what they need to have. The $2 million mansion is what they need to have. That's success. That's who you are. That's what makes you valuable and important in this world, all this stuff. So, but there's a whole generation that say, crap, I don't want that. I don't want a big SUV. I don't want a house. I want to travel the world. I want to go to Japan and ski.
Craig, even if that's the thing, you couldn't afford it. See, because I agree. We have shifted from
that's another
having
dynamic.
A job,
well, that's another dynamic.
To making money with money.
I know that's another dynamic, and that's the wealth distribution is not right. But there's a whole generation that's not saying that they can't afford it. It's not what they want.
No.
And I think
I understand.
Yeah. And so I think that I praise them, and I think that's great. They want a tiny home because they can lock it up and go to do something else.
Or they don't want a home at all.
Or they don't want a home at all. They want,
they want to see the world. I mean, my granddaughters.
That's my commentary.
My granddaughters want that. They want to travel.
Yeah.
They're earning their living so they can see the world. They are not interested in buying a house and getting a big car. I mean, sure, they can do that, but that's not what they want. They want to see the world and experience it.
Yeah.
And how you see the world is also very interesting because we bring our box with us.
Yeah.
And that I once remembered when my father went traveling in Mexico, and that wasn't his culture. And he came back and he said he couldn't get rye bread. So if you go with something in mind and you have to take everything with you so that you're going to be comfortable, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
It's through discomfort. It's through awkwardness. It's through the unknown that we find ourselves.
There was a television program, and I can't remember his name, but he traveled the world and experienced food. I think he committed suicide, unfortunately.
Bourdain.
Bourdain.
Yeah.
Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah. And I just love that program because he met the families and he went inside the homes and he met the culture and food was the commonality. It was just what a wonderful concept.
Well, Hewell Hauser, who lived here in Laguna.
He was gay.
And yeah.
Just thought I'd toss that in there.
And Hewell and I were really good friends. We used to meet regularly every year. And then he moved to Palm Springs after a while.
Of course.
Of course. But Hewell, he lived that way too. He wanted to experience the places and did that. And that was really important for him. And he would introduce you to it. And it's interesting. The last time before he passed, I said to him, well, people will remember you, Hewell. We used to meet in Long Beach with a mutual friend who was an artist. And every year we would all meet at her home. And she'd worked in lint, dryer lint. She was called the Lint Lady. She was on Time magazine. Her name was Slater Barron. And her name itself came from, she was Mary Lou Barron. But she became Slater because she lived off of Slater Avenue in Huntington Beach. And one day she took a stroller with a videotape and the neighbor called the police. And next thing you know, she had published her AKA as Slater Barron from Slater Avenue. But anyway, she was a real character. So we would meet there. But Hewell had the same attitude that you could experience the world. And he was so excited about it, and he would share it with you and introduce it. It didn't matter if it was an ice cream factory or if it was somebody making lint, art out of lint from a dryer. The reason why Slater did that is she had 5 children, and she was always cleaning out the lint from her dryer. So you see, I mean, that's art was made from lint, and she wrapped it and made it into sushi rolls. And so, you could see the work she did, and it was wonderful.
And why would see the question? And it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why she.
Well, you said
because
art has no
because it was
judgment.
exciting.
Yeah.
Because that was
For
available.
her, it was exciting. For you and me, would not be exciting.
Oh, well, it was very exciting, especially
for me,
when,
wouldn't be. I don't like lint.
You don't
For me,
but you might like it if you saw it because I
Let's
took
not
my
judge.
grandchildren to
no, she could like no. I don't charge you. I say I'm 101,
Yeah.
and I have a
That's right.
different.
He didn't want lint.
Yeah,
But then again, it was really beautiful to look at too. And my grandchildren loved it. The fact that they could find out that you could do something with lint.
yeah.
I mean, who thought? Who knew? And everybody plucks it out of their dryer and yet
Yeah.
would throw it away.
There's a
without even
commonality with it.
thought. Yeah. So the things that we don't consider as tools, we can use as tools.
Yeah. And I like the Anthony Bourdain thing because he went always with family and we saw what we all humans think, the archetypal thing of sharing food.
Food.
Sharing food is so archetypal and most restaurants are so far away from that.
From
They
the
just
original.
want, they want you to just come in and be, oh my God, look at all this.
It's
Look
a
at all the service.
commercialization.
Yeah, and
But in spite of it, Michael, that's exactly what we do. We bring friends and we sit there and they taste each other's food.
Yeah. No, that's the archetypal.
I remember
It's an automatic
my
thing.
brother went to Guanajuato and studied at the University of Mexico, and we came back. Of course, food was always a big part of our family. And my brother Todd said, everyone thinks Mexican food is spicy. It's the most bland, boring food you can. He says,
interesting.
Only the Americans think it's really spicy. And they put
that was what's sold, like salt.
Yeah.
It was added but really the basic food, corn, masa.
Yeah.
And just like the Native Americans here, the food was very simple,
Mhm.
And we still have all the things here in the canyon. For instance, you walk out. I've taken my grandchildren out and had them taste the lemonade berries and had them take little pieces of this and that. And some people are afraid to do it, but it's really quite wonderful. You can survive very well on it.
Yeah, healthy.
So I also wanted to talk about your books, Michael, and describe your other creative endeavors. So tell us some of your books that you've
the
written.
books I wrote a script where I worked with Robert Evans, who did The Godfather. Then all my 5 books that I published are art related. I've also
Where can people find your books?
Amazon. Just put
On
my
Amazon?
name in. Michael, or go to my website, Michael with 2 L's, m.com.
Michael Magrush.
Yeah, M. No,
Michael M?
And Michael with 2 L's and M. So Michael LM, if you want.
Okay, so Michael using 2 L's in the first name with an M, and then your books can be found on Amazon?
Amazon, yeah.
That's great. And can you give us some titles?
I did experiment. I did 300 paintings in 3 days. And
300 paintings in 3 days.
Yeah, I said 300. It's called imagination. And I photographed all the 300 paintings. And I learned in that process that actually I was thinking, okay, I can do 150 perhaps. I didn't know, like I told you, I cannot choose the outcome. And I did. And I found actually out that the last 50 were the best paintings, like the most that resonated with me.
It's interesting because as you go through the process, one process, you're different for the next one, and you're different for the next one.
Exactly.
So there's a progression, I would assume.
So
you found that the last few
were actually the best.
Yeah.
And I left them as the thing, but I said what I learned in this process was actually that the last 50 are the best. And then I did also the titles. I then titled them. I painted them in 3 days, and then I took another 3 days to title them, each of them.
Wow.
So and it's very interesting what I said, and I have it also. I can buy it on Kindle or in hardcover. It's expensive in hardcover.
Now, why did you title them at all?
Because I hate when artists don't title it. I personally hate when they say unknown or untitled. I can't stand it. If you express yourself and you cannot give it a name to it, like I can't stand the arrogance to say, oh, tell me what you think, Greg, about this painting, how you would title it. I leave it up at you. No, I'm expressing myself, and I write a title, whatever I think, and perhaps that will open you more to actually understand my art.
An extension of the art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my book, The Smart of Art, I wrote about this. I said, I can't stand when artists, don't title this thing. That's lazy. Say no. When you do a dot, call it.
Yeah.
Call it. Is it a dot? Is it a hole? Is it whatever? Say what it is. Is it a flag? Like Japan. What is it? What you're expressing? And also that lets me into your expression. Oh, you were thinking about this, Greg. I didn't know that. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the other thing was because I never see how they hang stuff, and I gave Bill, I gave him one of my books because I say you see how to hang a triptych. You see how to hang two pictures or one, but you never see a whole book which tells you how to hang anything that is effective. For me, it's not what's right. For me, it's what's effective. When I can walk into a painting, when I keep walking in a painting, I automatically connect with it. When I hang it too high, that's why pictures that are hung lower, they're not intimidated, because people are so intimidated by art. When it's high, it's even more intimidating. They cannot connect, and you can
want it to be.
Yeah, no, and you can literally hold it up, and you see there's a certain thing. All of a sudden, there's no connection with the painting in the height. But and so this was another one.
So the experience of how you look at art is as important as how you appreciate it.
Yeah. So if I have 10 artists, they all make red paintings because I ask them to make red paintings. You hang that all together, it's losing. They compete with each other.
So you shared this with Bill Atkins.
Yeah.
Because he what is it? Art Q? What do they call it?
Whatever. Yeah.
For the Susie Q.
He curates the shows and hangs them, and also teaches.
Right, but his I found it interesting because I was just there recently and looking at how it was hung.
Yeah, he didn't do what I said. I said this is just to.
And what is next to one another, and
everybody has their own vision. Again,
I agree.
It's just like cooking.
I'm not critical of
No,
Bill.
no. It's that's the point we're making. Everybody has a vision. He does it through his lens, and Michael would do it through his lens.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that all of a sudden it dawned on me, when you have such a mixture of art in one space, one big space, that where it's placed is significant.
It is very important.
And also the highest contrast. Always.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Because we have done years in Huntington Beach Art Center, and there is that center on the center, and that's like 300 artists. And what they had it segregated into photography, sculpture, thing, and it was nothing compared to when you mix it all up. The hardest contrast, and I was working with Kate Hoffman.
Well, they do that at the festivals too. They do segregate them according to,
so
media.
An option might be, if there's a common message or a common path in each one of the arts, you might want to gather
people
them
look
together.
at it. This is what I wrote about it. Why people look at it and they say this is the best. Leah's oil painting is the best. And they go. They don't even look at others. If it's mixed up, your brain likes to figure it out. So in your story, never have order. Never have order if you want to sell. Because when I look at this pants and those pants, oh my God. I settle in. My brain settles in to decipher, the green pants versus the red pants, but not all green pants, because they're taken away from each other. Always. You can literally see when you go to any art show how much the paintings take away from each other. You can literally see it, and nobody.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and that's what my whole book is about. That how to do public art. Also, I was arts commissioner of Newport Beach, and I saw how they, and I'm very proud that I was the one that was insisting on that we change out the art every 2 years, because thing you leave permanently becomes an ornament.
Well, they don't see it anymore.
Yeah, you don't.
It's like even people who live at the beach say
Exactly.
they don't even look at the ocean anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes kind of, they think it's always going to be there. It's just, you forget to look.
Yeah.
You forget to look at those things. So, what other creative endeavors are you doing?
I'm writing a lot right now. So I really do a lot of also commentary on Twitter and everywhere.
Social media.
Yeah, do commentary.
Do you mostly do your comments
about art
on social media,
but also politics of human. I'm not going into politics, but I'm going into human centricity. I say, so when somebody says, "Oh yeah," like Reid Hoffman said, "Oh yeah, AI. There needs to be certain people that need in charge of it." I said, no. AI is a tool, and then not 7 people can take care of it. If Craig wants to use it or Leah wants to use AI, I don't want to be told how to use AI,
Right.
So
no, the only thing one has to know is how to actually, how to handle it. Like, and then you are free to do it the way you want to do it. Because sometimes you have to learn certain things. Like, for instance, if you're driving a car, I do have to learn how to press the pedal.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that everyone drives the same.
And you cannot drive only on that.
And you don't really want to go on the opposite side of the street.
Yeah, exactly.
but yes, I know what you're saying. So now you're doing.
I literally, I painted 3,000. I don't have any thing to want to paint anymore.
Well, that's all right. In fact, I think that's very interesting. You mention it because you're moving on.
Yeah.
In the way you express yourself.
Yeah.
My father was a painter and spent his life in his work in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And as he aged, and I find the same thing, you shift your medium.
Yeah.
And he became a poet.
And I was a musician.
He published his first book at 90. So, of poetry. And it was as eccentric as he was. Mm-hmm. And there was a freedom that he had in it, probably even more so than his painting.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the work from art school with the models, and then you look how it changed over a period of time. And the beauty of it is that you're constantly changing. A museum has an exhibit of an artist that lived here in town, and her work changed constantly, and you couldn't categorize it.
I like it.
And that is the mark of someone who is thinking.
So, Michael, if it's kind of like the wells run a bit dry on creating new art. Is that what you're saying?
It's no. It's just I have to feel it when I write. Right now, I did like 80, 90 articles, and they're all on LinkedIn. I talk about everything. I talk about human, about creativity, aesthetics. I talk about politics. I talk, I have so many things, and whatever stuff comes to me, I write it down. And I love to play with, to how to word it, how to do. And I do a podcast every week that's called Humanity Unboxed. And I have 50 episodes on Humanity Unboxed, which is an artist from South Africa.
Where can somebody hear that?
Just put my name, Michael Magrucci, into, or go to Michael with 2 L's, M, and then you see, if you put my name into YouTube, you see probably 200-300
so
different.
YouTube, that's how.
So the commonality, if you had to put it in a box, would be that it's the creative process that is appealing to you.
Actually, Megan, you might have a box.
And the human.
You might want to have a box with your name on it.
Yeah, human centric. I am very. I see the most fulfillment I have when I talk to humans. I mean, there's nothing that gets my perception, because I have a one-on-one perception, clear when I talk to Leah or you. I get it clearer, and you get your
Mhm.
perception of life that you have experienced also clearer. That's why I say that's the second superpower. First is creativity, because we are creative, collective creator species of nature. And so it's creativity is number one, dialogue is number two, and adaptability. We can adapt to everything. So let's say we three do this podcast right now. We adapt to each other, that actually we can dance with each other.
Mhm.
It
And
is
that's
a
a
dance.
superpower.
And
That's
No,
we
it's
come
right.
away being different for having experienced each other.
yeah.
I have to say, KXFM 104.7 Laguna Beach's community radio. We're here this evening with Leah and Michael McGruch, and we're talking about everything to do with art and art culture, what razzes our berries, and this is Art Walking Art, second Thursday of every month.
Artwalking.art.
Well, yeah, dot. Okay.
The dot,
art.
I think, is important.
Okay. All right.
You know, we have to always put a dot on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're almost at the point where we're going to wind up our program. And I would like to know something, Michael. What keeps you positive? And what do you think needs to change to help others feel included? So, what makes you feel positive first?
What makes me feel positive is my life experience, that I had every chance to be negative. I've had every chance to be a victim. I've had every chance to excuse me, and I had all the doctors subscribing to that. I'm dyslexic. I got a psych test in 24 in February, and I was 2 points above a mental handicap person. And in 24, and so I had every chance to go negative, and the fact that I'm now 66 was because I always kept moving forward and be positive. Perhaps it doesn't work tomorrow, but till now it worked, and that's why I'm positive.
Well, I think this is really important because as I age and have friends that are aging, they're living in the past, many of them.
Yeah. See,
And,
I can't do that.
I see it happening. And every reference is it's a way to control their life because they know people are dying off, they're losing their memory, their bodies are not functioning the same way. And there's a desperateness in them to be heard. It's like they're crying, is standing behind glass. Hear me, please hear me. And while we can hear, the thing is that what you're saying is this creativity. If we can inspire people to use those kinds of things so that they're not living just in the past, that they have some reason to move forward, even in small ways, to take that walk. What's that famous saying? Walk the same path every day and you'll see something new. It's only when you walk that path every day
And
that
looking,
you see.
and looking too.
You
But
gotta
the
look.
only time you can do that
Yeah.
is when you're not worried about the path. If you try a new path, then you have to watch out you don't fall off the edge.
Yeah.
This way, every time you take a little walk out into the garden, say,
Mhm.
you look down and you see something new every single time.
And
And it's
I-
a beautiful thing.
I was, for example, I had a vagus nerve infection a long time ago, and I started. I couldn't do anything other than painting to distract myself from the pain, and it was very Miro-like. And I did a series of 20 paintings, just on paper with thing, and see this. I'm getting inspired by also what I don't like or what I don't understand. And what was the other question you asked me?
Oh, and then that was, with that in mind about keeping positive, what needs to change to help others feel included?
I think awareness, because and I have a story with this too. It's like you and I go to dinner, and then the next day you said, "I'm sick, Michael," and then and I said, "Why did you bring me to this?" That Craig said, "Why you get me to this restaurant?" And the next day you're still sick, and then you say, "Michael, I hate you that you took me to this restaurant." First you hate Craig, then you hate me, And the third day is you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, Leah, you finally got pregnant. You guys wanted to get pregnant. And it shows you that from a negative perspective to a positive perspective, first of all, that every one human has a different perspective, and that the perspective can change from totally negative into totally positive, or the other way around.
Well, I think you brought that up in just a discussion with people who have helped you, and a perception by many that that same person is not capable of helping anybody except themselves. And so you see, we make these conclusions. And the best of us do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we all are guilty of it.
You know, you're making me think about my mother, who, when she was 19 or 20, she suffered lupus because, and she wound up in bed for almost a year. And they told her that she probably wouldn't be around for many more years, and that she shouldn't. She wanted to get married, and she couldn't. That would be too much of a stress on her body, and certainly having a family would be a death sentence. Well, she lived to be 90. She had 3 sons, and every day was important to her, and she wasn't going to let the doctors decide what her future was going to be.
And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful codicil to the end of the program. Is this constantly looking forward and recognizing that we are capable of forging our own path and looking at things in a fresh way.
I don't want to have rose-colored glasses. I think it's difficult to do that.
It's not easy. Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, no one promised you a rose garden.
No, exactly. So just to sit here and say, oh, well, just, be positive. No.
It's not about that. It's not that law. It's not about that at all. It's about finding joy and meaning in things, even if it's dark. It's still positive, because that in itself gives you curiosity. It gives you a reason to continue on.
Well, I want to have Michael back and talk about art in general in Laguna, and what might be. I always like to think that there's a spark that could light a fire.
I agree.
I don't know what that spark is.
I know it.
You know it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we need to have you back, and we need to discuss that and how it would work for Laguna Beach, because I just think here's this culture of many decades of art in Laguna, and it could be an easily be an example.
This is going to be a fiery thing, because, they took art from the city seal out without anybody knowing it. The yellow city seal that we had, the old one, it had art on top. Now it's oval, like it looks like Newport Beach and Dana Point.
No, can't do that.
So I tell you, this is going to be a fiery show.
That's what I say.
Well, now we have
Tony Eisman said 2 years ago down on the cobblestone down on Main Beach that Laguna Beach is going to be 100 years old, and what's going to happen in 5 years, we need to decide now, because in 5 years,
agree.
And it was a very inspiring commentary, and I came back with a whole website about what we need to do. And I showed it with a few people. I showed it with George on the city council. What's his last name? Weiss?
Yeah.
George Weiss.
And he actually came to the studio here, and we discussed it and whatnot. But it didn't light a fire. And it's not that I haven't
But we're going to let the coals keep on burning. And
I'm not going to tell you, you know me, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to talk around. I'm going to say, and I'm not going to out any people.
No.
I'm just saying, what are we doing with ourselves? Like, why do we have wars? Why do we have 60 wars right now? What are we doing?
This is a perspective I shared on Rainbow Radio this week. If you see a photograph from the blue marble out in space and all these worlds, and you think how many 8 billion?
7.9.
7.9 billion. Okay. And so much of those people's lives are controlled by so few people.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense.
No.
Why do we have, it should be the people through their expression that should guide things in a sensible, reasonable way, but it's not happening. And I realize we need to have some organization. It's kind of like driving a car.
It's the idea of stability on steroids.
So we will have to have you back.
We'll have to go through that.
And I want to start a blaze of flames.
Yeah.
You need the coals to burn a little bit longer.
Okay, well, they're warming up. Okay.
Yes, we're going to keep them hot. And thanks, Michael, for joining
You're
us.
welcome,
This
you
was
know.
wonderful. And Craig, of course, always for being our wonderful producer. And thanks to the Beautification Council for supporting us, where nature nurtures culture.
Exactly.
I have a few songs to take us out if you want to join in melodies for the rest of the hour here. The first one I want to play is Bert Kempfert. It's called That Happy Feeling. It's an old song, and it's a crazy song, but it's a very happy song that we all know. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Dearly
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
And Craig, I have one more thing. I'm sorry I
Yes.
didn't get it out, but we have a few seconds.
Sure.
I went down near the post office and met up with an active person who was working very hard by himself. And he gave me this card, and it was voting for term limits.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, let's get the best government possible. And you go to NimbleGov, like nimble fingers,
Yeah.
NimbleGov, and then PAC number 1421491. And what it is that we have until November 15th for 2,000 signatures to limit the city council members to 2 consecutive 4-year terms and then 2 years off before re-eligibility. Over 82% of all Orange County cities have term limits. Why not Laguna Beach? And for more info,
That's interesting.
you can email nimble, NIMBLEGOVLB@gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and tuning in to artwalking.art this evening. We will be back next month, I'm sure, with an exciting program, and we will have Michael back, and we'll hopefully we can light a fire. Not to talk about fire,
not
but
literally.
not literally. Yeah, that's very important right here. Thanks
An
again.
imaginary fire.
We love you all, and thanks for tuning in this evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody. Thank you, Michael.